Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CEC for Life podcast. My name is Christian McGrew, and I'm the Director of Outreach for CEC for Life. Today is episode 2 of season 2 of the CEC for Life podcast, and we have our special guest, Father Frank Pavone, with us today. And we also have Savannah O'Brien, who is on our podcast team. So we're going to go ahead and have Father Pavone introduce himself.
Yes, well, it's great to be with you both and with our audience. Frank Pavone, Director of Priests for Life and of the National Pro-Life Religious Council, which is an interdenominational group. I also am privileged to serve as the Pastoral Director worldwide for the Silent No More Awareness Campaign, whereby people speak out about their abortion experiences, and of Rachel's Vineyard, the largest ministry for healing after abortion. And I'm proud to be on the board of the Defending Life Alliance of Florida and involved in some of the projects that we're going to discuss on this episode.
Yes, Father Pavone is on our board of
Mhm.
directors for Defending Life Alliance. And actually, Savannah was one of the founding members of Defending Life Alliance.
Yeah, used to be on the board, but I took a job with Students for Life. So now I am the Mid-Atlantic Campus Formation Coordinator for Students for Life America. So starting new groups in the Mid-Atlantic region and giving trainings to pro-life groups and tours and things like that.
Awesome. So today is we're recording this on Wednesday, September 24th. And 2 weeks ago is when the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk took place. And so we're going to start with talking about him and what he meant to um, the movement, just the conservative movement, and also the pro-life movement in general. Just to start off, I mean, it's absolutely devastating to see something like that happen. And we are devastated, CEC for Life, Defending Life Alliance, and we definitely have been praying for his wife Erica and his family and everyone associated with Turning Point USA. But but I want to let Father Pavone give us some insight on this because Father Pavone knew Charlie Kirk and tell us a little bit more about how important Charlie was to the conservative movement, the pro-life movement, and just who he was as a person.
Well, you can certainly get a sense of that by looking at who turned out for that memorial this past Sunday. I mean, when the President of the United States flies across the country, and the Vice President, and the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of War, and I mean, then you know that this is a person, and he was a person that these leaders look at as if it weren't for him, I wouldn't be in office right now. And that was the thing about Charlie. Not only was he, I mean, first and foremost, a follower of Jesus. You know, that was number one in his life, and a husband and father. I mean, he had the priorities straight. But then after that, not only was he someone who articulated the truth in a way that people could engage in honest, respectful debate, and he helped people to break through the shackles of lies, deception, falsehood. He was great at doing that. But there's something even deeper that got the left infuriated with him, and that was his success in mobilizing people in politics. The success, you look at not just the immense size and influence of Turning Point USA, and then they have their different divisions, TPUSA Action, TPUSA Education, TPUSA Faith. He built all these divisions to reach and to accommodate people of all different professional and personal backgrounds. But what was really the key here to what I think got the left very nervous about him was that the results are in the numbers, the turnout. He was able to get people registered and turning out to vote, and it was drawn from a very concrete, practical, detailed understanding of how politics works. For example, at the end of one of the AmFest events that take place just before Christmas each year out in Phoenix, there had been several days of these very high-level talks, inspirational conferences and so forth. But when he took the stage for the final message, he was saying to them, Now, how many of you are going to become committee persons at your on the local level in your communities with the Republican Party? Do you know even what that means? Let me explain to you what that means. And it's this practical sense of how politics works and the ability to inspire people to embrace the details of how politics works. That was a key to his success. So one of the times I was with him just before the election of 2024, we were both out in Nebraska because that was one of the states that had one of these abortion amendments on the ballot, like we did in Florida, of course. Praise God, we beat it in Florida. We beat it in Nebraska too. But he and I were out there for an event with the governor and with others just about a week or two before the election. And so when I greeted him, I said, so how you doing? Trying to win elections, trying to win elections. So it's like we all knew we were working to win the election. But for him, it was like, every waking moment, every breath that he took, every move that he made. And he was actually very proud after the election. The first time we saw each other after the election, we both had the same idea. We ran up to each other and gave each other a big embrace, and we both came out at the same time with the words, "We did it! We did it!" So we, of course, referring to all of us, this whole movement together, but we were privileged to be, organizing a lot of people. Every fiber of his being, every ounce of intellectual energy, every moment of his time. This was someone that poured himself into the cause, and that's going to be part of his legacy. And we see it happening already. That people say, you know what, I was doing a lot before. I'm going to double it now. I'm going to get more involved now. I'm going to be more active now. And this is the fruit is going to be the fruit of what obviously was a very big injustice. We were robbed. I mean, that was the thought, the words that went through my mind when this happened. And the day it happened, by the way, we had the pro-life leaders together for our quarterly meeting. You've been at those meetings. That was the day of the 115 forum. And then those were the words that were going through my mind and the feelings that we've been robbed of a national treasure, a Christian treasure, but at the same time, his example and spirit will continue to inspire us.
Yeah. Yeah, we were robbed of a leader, and obviously his children were robbed of a father, and his wife of a husband, and so many people were robbed. And I love what you said about how he made it practical for people, because that's one thing that I often
Yeah.
find that most people don't make it practical. We go to these events and all these people say these amazing things, like you said, but then there isn't any direction on how the individual can come out of that experience and make an impact. So I think that's really an admirable thing that he was able to do, and that's of course part of the reason why he was so popular. And and I think that that's one of the things that we can try to continue in honor of him, is to push after and put every ounce of our being into pushing forward the cause, just like he did. And that kind of brings us into, like, where do we go from here? And I want to hear from both of you on this, but where do we go from here, knowing that we don't have that leader in our movement?
I mean, yeah, definitely what you
Savannah?
both are saying. Yeah, what you both are saying is so true. Like that's definitely how I felt. And I think it's so obvious that's how so many people felt just seeing the mass memorials of hundreds of thousands of people all over the world. I think we know something Charlie would say a lot is we have a country to save, and that's so true. And he was really at the helm of that, and he was spearheading that movement to save the country. And he was really trying to bring us back from being, one nation under government to one nation under God. And he was really just such a leader for that, and such a good example for young men and women, but especially young men. And just knowing that we don't have him physically here anymore, to be at the helm and leading this movement. But just the fact that, Turning Point USA has already had over 60,000 requests to start new chapters, across the country. Like definitely,
Imagine.
definitely very hopeful. I mean, I know here at Students for Life, like we've already had hundreds of requests to start new groups too. People are saying, like we want to get more involved. And there's on the flip side, there's also people who are a little more hesitant because of everything that's going on. But I think overwhelmingly, like we see people who are just they're like, you know what, no, like we're not going to just let this slide, and we're going to continue his legacy and continue everything that he started. Um, And yeah, I mean, he would always pray. This is something that he said in many interviews and stuff, right? That he would always pray before all of his events. Like he would just say, God, like thy will be done, right? And I think that that's the most important thing we can do moving forward, is just making sure that we're always submitting ourselves to the will of God the same way that he did. And and just living out that. I mean, St. Paul says in the New Testament, right, the word to imitate him as he imitates Christ. And I think Charlie was such a good example of imitating Christ. And so we can, make sure that, he was such a tangible example for us. So we can look to him, do as he did, because he really was just trying to, obey what Christ had called him to, and the life that he had laid out for him. And I think we saw that, so beautifully in everything that Erica said in her speech too. And, they just are such true Christians and so gracious. And, so it's devastating, it's heartbreaking, and it definitely, is, I know a lot of people are feeling anger and sadness, and just like, where do we go from here? But I think, like Erica said in her speech, that, he had incomplete work, but not unfinished business. Right. And so I think that a lot of people are able to pick up the torch and carry on from where he left off.
And I think that's what will happen. That's what he would want to happen. And it's also a question of us. Where we go from here is that we hopefully get from this tragedy a clearer understanding of what the battle is. Because some people, I'm afraid, are and this includes people on the left who have been nice enough to say, oh, this was a tragedy, but then they just go into this superficial pleading about, oh, well, we got to tone down the rhetoric, we got to stop political violence, we got to come together in unity. Well, of course, I mean, we all agree with that, but they don't understand where unity comes from. And this is what the battle Charlie was engaged in with these debates on the campuses. You can't have unity if you don't have truth. In fact, you can't even have dialogue if you don't have truth. And you saw, many of the encounters that he had with some of these left-wing students, the conversation just fell apart. Not because he didn't want to listen, but because they no longer had anything to say, precisely because they don't believe there's any such thing as truth. It's just a venting of, oh, well, I'm just going to vent what's inside of me, you vent what's inside of you, and that's it. Well, that can't be it, because then there's no, how do you come together? And as like Charlie said, I mean, if you can't come together in dialogue, then the only thing left is that you fight. So the battle for us is, yes, we have to bring people together, but we got to bring them together around God, the reality of God manifested in Christ. We got to bring them together around the reality that there is a moral law that we can discover and that we have to obey, and that we did not create and that we cannot change, and that there is such a thing as truth, which we don't invent, we accept, we discover, we seek and find, and then we hold on to and we live by it. The problem is, people say, oh, well, this is bad, this is terrible if it's violence. Yeah, we're not supposed to be shooting people, but neither are we supposed to be attacking truth and morality and faith. And when you attack those things, that's a form of violence too. And that's what keeps us from coming together. Not we who stand up for Christ and stand up for truth, and who say a man can't become a woman and a woman can't become a man and a baby cannot become a glob of tissue. It's like, we're the ones, that's not divisive, that's unifying when we admit the truth and proclaim the truth. And I think that a good result of this needs to be, it becomes clearer and clearer to us what the battle lines are. When we stand up for that truth, it drives away the lies. And then the people who are still wedded to the lies, they feel that the only way they can stop us is to kill us, because they can't refute us. They can't silence us. They can't stop us. They can't demotivate us. So sadly for them, the answer is violence.
I was going to say, that's such a good point. It's like, we have to be united around something. You can talk all you want about unity, but what are you uniting around? You can't just, if you're like, let's unite, first question you're going to ask is, unite around what? So that has to be very clear. And, Charlie would always say, like, his piece of advice is like, there is a God and you are not him. And,
right.
you have to like remember that. I think that's the thing with the left is like, they want to now come out and, claim that they want unity. But it's like, for so long, all they've been focused on is like, they can't they refuse to be refuted in anything. And like everything that they stand for, they can't defend it. So it becomes, because it's so indefensible, it's so unfathomable for them to come to a point where they say, like, where they admit that they're, backing all these lies and that this is what they're standing for. Um, and, so I think they just get to a point where they can't admit it. And so because they can't defend what they believe with words and dialogue, then they resort to violence or they celebrate the violence that occurs.
Yeah.
Sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very sad. And we kind of see, or we definitely see here, a very clear line that's being drawn between good and evil, with the people on one side who are celebrating the murder, and then the people on the other side who are fighting for truth, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that it's definitely a spiritual war. I think you both agree with me
Yeah.
on that, but it's something that is even more clear now than before, that we are fighting a spiritual war, against principalities and powers, um, and not against flesh and blood. But
Yeah.
the problem is that those principalities and powers have a hold of a lot of these people,
Mm-hmm.
who are going and assassinating our political figures and who are celebrating that. And so I think that it's now more than ever we have to pray for all of us, pray for the other side too, pray for them, pray that they'll be released of those demons, just to be really honest.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I think that one of the biggest things I thought of, like I've been thinking of, is we need to pray for our friends who we all know who go out on college campuses and do similar things. And we need to pray for them that they'll be safe, and they'll be protected during this time, because it is a time of heightened political violence, and so it's really sad. But yeah, I just think that it's very clear now more than ever that it's a spiritual war, and so it's very clear who's on what side, I think, after
Mm-hmm.
the situation and everyone's
Yeah.
reactions to that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the thing, right? Is that like we live in essentially two separate realities. I mean, like they're when when your moral framework is that, it's okay for babies to be killed and, there's no difference between man and woman and they're just interchangeable, right? When you hate God, like there's no middle ground there really. This
No.
really is good versus evil, and so yeah, I think it's just
Yeah,
getting
there is
to that
there
point.
is no middle ground, and I say to people, don't be so concerned that there's division. There always has been division. There always will be. Division actually is eternal, right? Because
Mhm.
you got Jesus comes back, and some will be on his left and some on his right. Heaven and
Yeah,
hell. The division itself is eternal.
yeah.
So don't be concerned that there's division. Be concerned that you're on the right side of that division.
Hmm.
That's what people need to be focusing on.
Right.
And like you said, the Christian, this is going to focus those battle lines even more.
Mhm.
Definitely. Yeah, and so going from here, we just have to know where we stand, know how to defeat the enemy, and use prayer to do that. And I think we're gonna all, as a movement, go in a direction that's better in his memory, and or because of his memory and how he handled things. And so yeah. So and one of the things that I want to talk about today, Savannah, is now that you are working with Students for Life up in the Mid-Atlantic, and being a campus formation coordinator, one of the things that you guys are doing is exposing the fact that Walgreens, CVS, all of these pharmacies are selling abortion pills. And everyone, when I say that, they'll say, "Oh, you mean like Plan B?" No, I mean like abortion pills.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit
Mhm.
more about that and how you guys are exposing that?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. A lot of people don't know about it, or they don't believe that it's actually happening. Because of Roe versus Wade being overturned, and this all going back to the states. It's not in every single state across the country, but there are many states who do allow it. And so, yeah, part of what Students for Life has been doing this week specifically is all across the country. We've had our regional coordinators go out to try and mobilize and rally students together and go out in front of CVS and Walgreens and different pharmacies that are prescribing or selling this the abortion pill, and just raising awareness about it because a lot of people just don't know. And pro-life people who maybe wouldn't want to be giving their money to CVS and Walgreens, if they're doing that, then it's important to just make sure that they have all the information. So that's sort of been the big push this week.
Yeah, that's awesome that you guys are doing that. I wonder, Father Bone, if you could kind of give some insight on this. How do we get into a society where it's no longer just that you have to go to an abortion clinic to have an abortion, but now you can go to Walgreens or CVS to have an abortion?
Yeah. It has always been the effort of the abortion industry to make it as easy as possible for someone to kill their babies. And in the thrust towards, I mean, they've been developing these drugs for a long time, developing the political fight against these abortion drugs. I mean, some of us were battling this starting like in 1994. I remember back at that time, the FDA. I mean, Clinton had just been elected
Mhm.
president in '92, and he was the one, that facilitated all this starting to happen. And and the battle was engaged right from that time. But you know what? There's a dual motive here that might not be initially evident to everybody. Why would they happen this way? I mean, aside from just there's a lust for death, they want to kill more and more babies more and more easily, harm
Mhm.
more and more women more and more easily. Okay, that's one thing. But first of all, the abortion industry has always had a personnel problem.
Mhm.
They can't hold on to their personnel because we weren't made to kill babies. We don't,
Yeah.
people don't want to work doing that. And people get tired of it very, very quickly. They get hired by an abortion facility and they're usually out of there in a couple of months. So they've always had a recruitment problem, including a recruitment of doctors. So if you think about it, if instead you're using a pharmacist and you're just selling somebody some pills, much, much easier to recruit workers for that. Or you've got them kind of built into the system in the
Mhm.
pharmacy stores around the country. But the second thing is this: in the abortion facilities that do the surgical procedures, the staff have to deal with the body parts. And as we know, you think about how an abortion is done, they've got to reassemble those body parts in a tray to make sure that nothing was left inside. That's quite a burden on those people that work there. It's not a burden on the mother who gets the abortion. I mean, it's burdensome for her. She's terribly devastated by it, but she doesn't usually see those body parts. Think about what happens now that they're pushing a chemical abortion. They're off the hook
Mhm.
about seeing the body part. They don't have to deal with that anymore. I mean, putting some drugs in a package and handing them over the counter is there's nothing traumatic about that. And meanwhile, who has to bear the burden of that trauma? That poor mother in her house.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, if there could be any bigger form of selfishness, like, yeah, we want to get money off of killing these babies, but you guys deal with the gory mess. We don't want to
Mhm.
deal with that. And that's part of how we got here.
Yeah.
Right. It turns your home into a Planned Parenthood, essentially. Yeah. That's
Exactly.
devastating. Yeah, the more widely available the abortion pill is, the more abortions will be taking place, and the higher risk the woman is if when she takes that pill at home.
Yeah. And Savannah, I'm sure you can give us more insight on this, but there's a lot of stories when women um because of abortions. A lot of the times it's because
Mhm.
they get an abortion pill from one state and they come to another state and they aren't given proper instructions, or they didn't do, or maybe they mailed it in, and so now they don't even know if they have an ectopic pregnancy or if they're at the right stage of their pregnancy to even have a chemical abortion. And
Mhm.
so yeah, that happens a lot too.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, they're being lied to so blatantly, and these women are so vulnerable because they just don't understand, they don't know, and then they go home and they're scared and confused, and they don't know if it was done properly or not, and and then they're left with just the devastation of their child, who they just killed with through this pill. Like, it's just devastating. But it's interesting. Like when I'm on college campuses, a lot of the time, and I'm sure you both have experienced this too, but one of the main pro-choice arguments that I get is, well, what about the health of the mother? What about the life of the mother when her life is at risk? And so I'll try and, ask them a little more pointed questions like, well, what situation are you talking about specifically? We can go through all the different ones, ectopic pregnancy and, babies with different deformities and things like that. But I try to explain to them like it's not it's not necessarily the baby who is threatening the life of the mother the majority of the time. This is something very rare that happens. Really, the issue that we need to be focusing on is how the abortion is threatening the life of the mother
Mm.
and the trauma that it does and the damage that it does to her body. And it's just, and even they talk about cases of rape and everything like that. It's like this is just further violence and further trauma that you're committing against this woman, and now you're taking an innocent life in the process too. So I think it's just making people aware of that, because a lot of times they'll use that argument about the health of the mother, but they don't really have anything to back it up, or they don't really. It's just a talking point, so they don't really know what they're talking about. But
Yeah, the health risks are worse with the chemical procedures, and the healing. They feel the need for healing more quickly. We find in our ministries for healing after abortion that the amount of time that elapses between the abortion and the time they seek out the healing has become much shorter with the chemical abortions, because part of the reason is what we've just been talking about. You know, they saw the baby come out of them, and the denial was broken more quickly,
mm-hmm.
and they feel that need more sooner after it happens to say, wow, did I make a mistake? I need somebody to help me process this. The whole thing is a disaster.
Yeah.
Yes, it really is. But yeah, no, it's great to see organizations like Students for Life and you guys coming out and spreading awareness, because a lot of people don't know that Walgreens, CVS sells abortion pills, and we do need to make, because I think that's one of the biggest things just in general in the pro-life movement, is that they're not aware of the horrors of abortion. They don't know what it is
Mm-hmm.
like to have an abortion. They don't know what it looks like. Even people who've had abortions before, they're not sure. And I think that goes back to what you were saying about how they when they see it and when it happens in their bathroom, then they'll more quickly go to someone like Rachel's Vineyards for counseling and help,
Mm-hmm.
because they actually see how horrific it is. Um, but yeah, how can we spread awareness more with the reality that is abortion, and how evil and dismemberment and um basically, like you said, Savannah, having a Planned Parenthood in your own bathroom, like how can we
Mm-hmm.
spread that in a better way so that more people can see the reality of it?
I mean, I think there's a lot of great resources out there right now, and so many organizations who are all doing their part, and we're sort of in this together. But I mean, I think one of the most important things is honestly just um, starting with kids, and like trying to just explain, and not having to get in any gory details or anything like that, but make it age appropriate. But I think just starting with children and making sure that they understand the value of life from very early stages of their own life, and showing them, like when I was just at a street fair recently, and we had the fetal models out on the table, and every kid who came by was like, mommy, look at the baby, and it's like innate in us. We know that this is precious and it's something to be protected and cared for. And so, I think that's something that's really important. And, Live Action has the Baby Olivia video, which is very age appropriate for children to watch. And, you sort of just, I think, start to instill that into children at a young age. And then as they get older, that sticks with them. And then, I think hopefully they can be a little more guarded from the lies of the world that get pushed down their throat.
Exactly, exactly. And additional resources. The app See Baby Grow is so powerful,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd invite our listeners to look that up in the App Store, because you see the baby at the very early stages that these chemical abortions are literally starving those babies. And again, people don't think about the fact that there's a beating heart that is getting stopped
Mm-hmm.
by these powerful drugs. The See Baby Grow app is powerful. And then, of course, one of the ways too, in answer to your question, Christian, is to listen to the voices of the testimonies
Mm-hmm.
of those that have been through this terrible experience. Abortiontestimonies.com is a helpful website. You can search testimonies by the type of abortion that it was or by other circumstances. So, including, obviously, you'll see their chemical abortion, and you see in their own words the experiences of those that have been through this. And that's a great way of promoting awareness. Priests and pastors should use some of those testimonies in their preaching. Those that are doing interviews or writing articles, use those testimonies or just share them with a friend. Abortiontestimonies.com, and just look under the chemical abortion section. Boy, the voices of these not only the moms but the dads too, they need to be amplified.
Definitely. Yeah, I think another way that is something that we actually talk about, we try to talk about every episode is some type of in the culture, some type of pro-life, like maybe it's not intentional, unintentional pro-life movie or um piece of entertainment. And last time on our episode last month with Lydia Taylor, we spoke about how we hadn't seen it yet, but we spoke about how Fantastic Four, which this Fantastic Four movie had a pro-life scene, and I actually got the chance to see the movie, and that's another encouraging thing that we're seeing. Both last year we saw it in movies like Dune, and then this year we see it in Fantastic Four. But there's actually a scene in which you can see the baby inside the womb, and it looks like a fully formed human being, just like it is. And I think that it's so encouraging to see Hollywood, even if it's unintentional, bring back the reality that there's life in the womb. And whenever you see that, and you go to the movies, and you're like you're saying, Savannah, if you're a child, or if that's instilled in you when you
Mhm.
go and watch these movies or TV shows or in culture, if you see that, then you automatically in your head you're like, oh, that's a life. But whenever
Mhm.
Yeah,
society suppresses that, then you don't think about it that way, and then you start to believe someone when they say, oh, it's not a human life. But then, so
yeah.
yeah, I think that's encouraging that we've seen things like that.
Remember that video that circulated on social media a number of years ago about the woman who was saying she's going to film her abortion?
Oh,
Remember
I don't
that?
remember.
yes.
She was having an abortion procedure and she
Mhm.
videoed herself.
Mhm.
So she said, and this is part of an effort to, let's just tame it. Let's just make it more acceptable. Let's take the stigma out of it. They're never going to
Mhm.
succeed in doing that, but that's what they're trying to do, right? And my argument there was, you didn't film your abortion. I mean, I'm not questioning that you were having an abortion when you were filming. If you said that's what happened, I have no reason to doubt it. But you didn't film your abortion.
Mhm.
You filmed your face while you
Right.
were having an abortion. You want to film your abortion? Show me what's coming out.
Mhm. Right.
Show me what's going in, and
Mhm.
what is it doing? What's the abortionist doing? And why does he have to go in there? And what does he have to pull out? And
Mhm.
what happens after he pulls it out? That would be filming the abortion. But
Right.
of course, no, 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 no. They don't want anybody to see that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we just live in such a culture of death, and I think it's, this is why it is so important to just, start with kids and make sure that they are valuing human life from very early stages. I mean, we have to be crusaders of life in the culture of death.
Yeah,
Exactly.
completely. All right. So Father Pavone, tell us a little bit about how the pro-life movement is going to be involved with the 250th anniversary of the United States.
We have a big celebration coming. So 1776, we all know the significance of that year when our founders adopted the Declaration of Independence, and that started our nation. Then, of course, about a dozen years later, the Constitution was ratified. That took a little longer to happen because that was, the Declaration. That's the principles. Why are we founding our own country? And then the Constitution is more, how's it going to work? And what are the mechanics? And that took a long time because then all the states had to adopt it, ratify it, etc. But 1776 to 2026 is 250 years. Now, I don't know if some of our listeners may have been around at the bicentennial, 1976. I was a senior in high school that year. And so we were kind of proud of the fact that our graduating class was the bicentennial class. So now this one it's got a fancy name. It's the semi-quincentennial. So quincentennial is 500 years. Semi means half. So half of 500 is 250. So July 4th, 2026 is going to be big. But it's so big and it can't be contained in one day. So there are official celebrations that have actually already been prepared for years by committees that involve members of Congress and members of the cabinet. And what's happening now is that the ceremonies have actually started to happen. The events have started to happen, and there are events being planned from now throughout the entire year of 2026. So this
Uh-huh.
is going to be like a whole big celebration now for good 16, 17 months. And what is part of that, I was just at a meeting in DC with a new coalition that has been formed under the Department of Education for civics education. So one of the reasons why, all these disasters that we're talking about and so much of the ignorance that Charlie Kirk was confronting on the college campuses was that there's no civics education. People
Mhm.
don't know what kind of government we have, how it works, what principles it was founded on, and what it means. They just don't know. And if you don't know it, you can't love it. The whole idea of this celebration with the Civics Education Coalition is to say, let's educate, starting like Savannah, like you're saying, with starting with the young students at every level of education. Let's reintroduce them
Mhm.
to what America is. And let's ignite not only that knowledge, but that love of country, that patriotism. Okay. Now, how does that intersect with the pro-life movement? Well, very simple. And it's one of the reasons that Priests for Life is a member of this coalition. When you look at that Declaration of Independence, what do you see? Front and center, right at the beginning, the first right that is acknowledged in our governing documents is the right to life. In those very words, right there in the Declaration. We don't have to make it up. We're not reading into it. It's there. And not only is it there, but it's asserted there that that right comes from God. And then it talks about the purpose of government. And it says the purpose of government is to secure these rights, starting with life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, as we know. So it's exciting. So this is an opportunity, in other words, for the pro-life movement to step forward and to say, as our country looks back and reflects on who are we and why are we a country, we get them to focus in on that simple phrase, the right to life.
Mhm.
And this can be a very significant time of progress in educating people about that key pro-life principle and how it relates to government and law.
That's
So
awesome.
if people want to
Awesome.
know more about this, by the way, there's a website, America 250 Civics, America 250 civics.com, and they'll see more of what I'm talking about.
That's awesome. Yeah, I hope that through that more people will be able to see that yes, you're right. It's one of our rights as an American is life. It's the first one, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So um yeah, I hope that maybe in the when we're looking back and it's the 300th anniversary, maybe we can look at abortion like we look now at slavery and that we've defeated that and
Yes,
that's in our past.
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big wishes from us in the pro-life movement. So yeah, it's important that we look at our past in America and see, hey, look at what we did. We look what we did to this horrible thing that we were doing then. We abolished it. So let's do the same thing with abortion.
Mhm.
But
That is
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. Well, one of the things that we're doing to abolish abortion, hopefully we can, at this event, we can be kind of like Charlie Kirk, where he was able to tell people, this is how you get involved, this is how you go back to your home and do these things. So we're doing the Florida March for the Preborn. As everyone knows, if you know what CC for Life is, I'm sure you know about the Finn Life Alliance and the Florida March for the Preborn. But we're going to talk about it again and just give more updates on it. It's going to be on Saturday, January 17th. 2026. It's going to be at take place from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So 10 a.m. we're gonna have a pro-life expo. We're gonna have people with tables out. And this is goes back to what we are talking about. We want to have this expo with these different organizations that have tables from all throughout the state of Florida and national organizations because we want to provide an opportunity for individuals that are coming to our march to get involved. We want them to go back to their home city, home state with being equipped to go forward and join this fight with us because these marches are they are rallies, but they're also an activation for these people to be activated into the pro-life movement so that they are able to help us in this fight. And I think that our march is going to be amazing. We have a lineup of some incredible speakers so far. We have Emily Burning, who's the president of Let Them Live. We have Kimberly Bird, who is with Live Action. We also have Sarah Neely, who is with Operation Rescue. And we have some other speakers as well. We're actually going to have the pastor Seth Tweedale, and he is the head of Turning Point USA Faith in Florida. He's going to be speaking to talk about Charlie Kirk and to honor Charlie Kirk at the Florida March in January. So we're excited to have him
Nice.
speak about Charlie. But yeah, so we just want to continue to talk about the march because it is going to be really big. You know, we have all these supporting organizations that are alongside us that are going to be there and stand with us for life. And we have this wonderful park that we have a contract with, so we're going to be there. James Weldon Johnson Park. Please look up the information for the address on our Instagram or on their website. And yeah, so it's going to be an amazing time, an amazing event. And yeah, so what do you guys have anything to add on the march?
It's going to be great. I'll be in Jacksonville there, and the night before there's going to be a banquet. So
Yes,
our
there is.
partnership with Florida Right to Life has made it possible that Tim Tebow is going to be with us for the banquet the night of Friday, January 16th. And then, of course, the participants in that event will be urged to join us the next morning for this great statewide march. There are statewide marches going on all over the country. Florida, it really is special, though. We have a special reputation, of course, as a state that stands for freedom and beauty. And we have been making great strides in pro-life over these recent years, especially as our laws in Florida have become more and more protective of life. And we were one of the only three out of the 10 battles this past election about these abortion amendments, but we were victorious in Florida. So it's very appropriate that we celebrate with this march.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm so glad you guys are doing this and that it's continuing to grow. And I wish I could be there. My cousin's getting married that day, but but I'm sure it'll be
Ah,
great. Yeah.
Yes, well, we want to thank Savannah for being one of the founding members of Defend Life Alliance. So she did a lot to help us get started. And yeah, and for everyone who is listening, who is part of the CEC, our march is very much focused around the liturgy for the preborn. And so that is the centerpiece of our march. And we have one of our speakers that is going to speak during the homily of that. But that is very much the thing that we do right before we march, or last year we did it right after we marched. But it's the centerpiece of the march, and what we're doing in the liturgy is that we are kind of having a funeral slash last rite service for the preborn at the time of death, and it's a really beautiful service. Father Pavone, you helped Father Terry create that, and along with others, and so I think that it's a really fitting way to highlight the march for the preborn.
it's one of the unique things about the Florida March for the Preborn that it's literally, the rally is literally a prayer service. It's not just a rally with prayer. It's a prayer service, which is serving as the rally. So that is a unique element of this, and that liturgy for the preborn at the time of death. What I have always valued about it is it makes the preborn, in the minds of all the participants, a very real person because you are praying for someone at the time of death. You are accompanying them. It takes abortion out of the abstract and brings it down into the realm of, a real person who's really in danger of death. The other thing about it is, notice we're not calling it a March for Life. We're calling it a March for the Preborn. And I think, as you both and many of our listeners probably have heard me say before, sometimes the term pro-life is too big for its own good
Mm.
because every issue is a pro-life issue when you think about it. Otherwise, why is it an issue at all? The reason issues are issues is that they impact human life. So people can make the argument, oh, well, there's this pro-life issue and that pro-life issue. And what are you doing about poverty? What are you doing about war? What are you doing about capital punishment? Well, hopefully a lot of people are doing a lot of things about that. But I'm focused on one group of people who have been deprived of their most basic right and we want to give it back to them. It's the babies in the womb. It's the preborn. And I like that so much about our event, is that we are focusing in on those people. And of course, we favor the right to life from conception and natural death, as we always say, right? But that's a statement of your ethical principle. That's not a mission statement. You can't say, oh, well, what's your mission? Oh, well, my mission is to restore respect for life from conception and natural death. How can you do that? Hey, there's 10,000 different issues that you're talking about. Realistically, I mean, if you're going to have a mission, you've got to focus very specifically on what it is you're trying to accomplish. Well, what we're trying to accomplish is give a voice to these children in the womb and restore their protection. And for that, we will march.
Yes.
Yeah.
I couldn't have put it any better. But yes, no, that is true. We're fighting for the preborn. We want to continue this fight even stronger now that we can see the battle lines so clearly. And it is huge news, by the way, that Florida Right to Life is hosting the gala the night before, and that they're hosting Tim Tebow. That is huge news. And we're hoping to publicize that even more soon. So, well, thank you guys both so much for coming on the podcast, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Christian.
Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
Savannah, thanks for what you're doing on those campuses. We'll be
Oh,
accompanying you with much prayer and much partnership.
thank you so much. Thank you for everything you're doing too. Great to talk
Thank
to you
you.
guys.
God bless.
Okay. God bless.
Bless.